Hi, I'm Mahua. I'm really honored to be here and talk about emotional well-being in India. We all kind of know that India is set to become a $7 trillion economy in 2030 and the third largest economy by 2030. I mean, Trump tariffs notwithstanding. But, and a lot of the companies that are here have a story or a small part to play in that growth. But that growth also kind of comes with pressure. And that pressure is something that we see in a lot of these headlines, whether it's in terms of high burnout rates amongst corporate employees, a lot of mental health issues being reported, a lot of people feeling that they're unsupported in their workplace or otherwise. And these headlines also reflect what we've seen in our data. So every year we look back on, all the counseling sessions that we've done for the year. Last year was between January and November, sorry. And this is data from 83,000 counseling sessions, 12,000 elective screenings using standardized tools, and 42,000 assessments. And that's what I'm going to present on today. And feel free to interrupt me should you have a question or a clarification. So, contrary to what you would expect, there is a growth and people are reaching out to us for counseling at even higher rates than they did during the pandemic. Last year, this figure was around 2.9% on average across all the industries we support. But this year, that's grown to 3.7%. And by this utilization, I'm not talking about a 15 or a 30-minute session. I'm talking about 60 to 90-minute sessions in the case of couples. So there has been a surge, which means either there's greater awareness and openness to seeking help, and also perhaps a little bit more stress or less resilience and ability to cope with uncertainty and other things that we're seeing in the world today. And what really is bothering our people? So compared to 2023, I think last year we definitely saw a real increase in mental health concerns. 5 years ago, this would have been sub 5%. I think very few people were admitting that they had a mental health concern or were diagnosed with it. But now we do see that that's increasing. And just to go a little bit deeper into that, anything you notice in these top 4 issues for which people seek counseling? Yes? Take a wild guess. It's really simple. Work is not here. Most of the people who come to us for counseling seek it for something personal or for something self-related or something in their relationship or marriage or their family, right? So the number one kind of concern that we see that people come to us for help are to do with dealing with negative emotions or overwhelming emotions of anxiety, shame, guilt, stress, or they want to improve themselves, or under self-care would be I'm struggling with sleeping, or I'm struggling with a lot of other aspects of my life that I need to improve on. Mental health, like I spoke about, those have increased, at least the prevalence of it. And then relationship and marriage, I think the way that we differentiate this is relationship may have to do with your family relationships, so your premarital relationships, and your marriage is your marriage. So a lot of the concerns you see there around, of course, conflict, communication, a separation, a divorce, a breakup, or whatever else that might be. Work is only, 10 to 11% of this, and it's the 5th sort of reason for which people come to us for help. But it is still there, and at work, I think people are struggling still with work-life balance, with their relationships with their peers or their managers, certain career concerns that may have, that may be personal or may be exogenous if the organization is going through a M&A or whatever else it might be. So these are the reasons why people seek out help for workplace stress, and these individuals do show higher levels of stress compared to some other concerns in terms of the intensity of what they're feeling. And I don't think this is too surprising that we're still struggling with work-life balance. Like today, I think the first thing I did was send an email, work-related email, not a WhatsApp to my family or anything like that. So I think we're all sort of navigating digital life balance and work-life balance still, and we still all need help for it. Which brings me to my next slide, which is a bit stuck, sorry. So if we look at digital life balance, 60% of people are still struggling with having enough off-screen time, and they're still unable to switch off or unable to pay attention to their relationships with their family or truly be present. And this is data from a burnout assessment that we've done. And so I think that's a place where I think organizations can play a role in sort of helping people establish boundaries between work and life. And then finally, if we look a bit deeper into the demographics of mental health and counseling, it's stuck. 1 second. Yeah. So women are still, more likely to seek help. This hasn't changed, but what's really great to see is that this year, men are almost on par. Although women are underrepresented in the corporate workforce, they still do seek higher counseling utilization, and they seek it largely for a lot of the relationship or caregiving or work-life balance reasons, whereas men may seek it for financial stress or other concerns. The suicide risk and the prevalence of other mental health conditions is higher in women, and that just means we need to support them better, and especially through any kind of transition that they may be going through, whether it's getting a promotion, becoming a parent, returning back to work, whatever else it might be. But yeah, I think it's really heartening to know that men are almost equivalent. This wasn't really the case, again, 5 years ago. In addition, I think young people are taking, more open to mental health services. They do screen positive for depression and anxiety a lot more than people who are slightly older. So this could mean, two things. One, they're more open and conversant to talking about mental health and seeking help for it than other generations. And then two, maybe their distress tolerance is a little bit less, so they don't have the support systems that older generations of our workforce do. I really do see this even in our own company. I think a lot of the younger people that we have between 20 and 25 are a lot more conversant and open to discussing these issues. Yesterday I was in a strategy meeting. We work at a mental health company, and my colleague Anna, who's about the same age as I am, has been dealing with a lot of chronic spondylitis, and I've seen her in and out of a neck brace. And she basically, it took her seeing 4 neurologists for someone to tell her she needs to see a psychologist, because the stress is sort of, exacerbating it, and it's sort of a cycle. But yeah, it was quite an interesting learning point that we work at a mental health company, but we still aren't ourselves necessarily aware in this generation of 30 to 40 that, hey, I need to see someone. So this data point kind of supports a little bit of that inference. And then I think the last one strong point that I definitely wanted to leave you with is the role of a manager. I think how many people here spend more time with their manager than their family? Or have this last week? Okay. Okay, a few, yeah, okay. So yeah, I think, we spend 8 to 10 hours at work, 1 to 2 hours commuting, maybe, 1 or 2 hours eating and bathing or whatever, showering, which leaves 8 hours sleeping, which leaves, I think, 3 to 4 hours at most with your family on a daily basis. Maybe on the weekend you get more time and you make up for it. But bulk of our time is spent at work with your manager. They are a great person to notice any kind of changes in your behavior. If you're, snapping a little bit more, a bit more irritable, not as engaged, glazing over, whatever other behaviors there may be that it may indicate something is not quite right. And for us, I think 1% of all the counseling sessions that happened were enabled by managers, either through a referral or a consult. And interestingly, 59% of those who had been referred had a high suicide risk. So managers are really crucial, and the more training and power we give to them to identify this and to give them some listening skills and some empathy skills and awareness to identify signs of distress, the better it is for all of us. They are crucial advocates in well-being in an organization. And then finally, I think, yes, so this was an elective, screening that we started doing about 1.5 years ago. And what we found is this is only for people who are coming in for counseling the first time. This is not necessarily from data for people who've been in and out. So what we found is that 87% of people screen positive for depression, 86% screen positive for anxiety, and 28% screen positive for suicidal ideation or self-harm. And a little bit more on this data again, sorry, it's a bit stuck. So I think when we say 28% indicated, this is the sort of, risk levels that we saw in terms of suicidal ideation. So low risk may be somebody with a lot of protective factors and, awareness and a support system, and maybe they've just had an ideation in the past 6 months, but they're not actively thinking about it. Whereas high risk is somebody who might be in sort of imminent danger and is actively self-harming and may have very low protective factors. So this is how we sort of look at this. Again, it may sound really alarming, but I think this is a good thing because that means more people are open to having this conversation and open to seeking help in time. I think one adage that we always say is that often when somebody is feeling self-harm or suicidal, it's not necessarily that they want to end their life. It's just that they want to end the pain that they're in that's making life or everyday living very intolerable. So, timely help is of the essence because, I think this is, some data that we showed also of those people who screened positive, in the earlier slide that I showed, within 3 sessions, 48% screened sort of either negative or significantly less on levels of anxiety and depression. And this is just people who took, 3 sessions within the span of maybe 2 to 3 months and already benefited from counseling. So it's really important that we get people the help that they need and they can recover from it. In addition, 98% of the people were able to progress towards or meet their goals within counseling. So although this data seems to indicate that you should only go for counseling if you're depressed or anxious, I don't want to leave you with that. You can go to counseling to thrive or to learn how to flourish, or if you're going back home and shouting at your kid 4 times a week, a very relevant goal maybe, I want to just play with my kid and maybe accept shouting at them 2 times a week during exam time, right? So these are the kind of goals that we measure in counseling, and it can be really simple and really human. And that's sort of my time at the moment. So I just wanted to stop here and see if you guys had any kind of questions on some of the data that I shared. Thank you. Yeah?
So as per NCRT,
yes.
suicide is like 70.2% of all people who die by suicide are men.
Yes.
And it's almost 2 to 2.5 times across the globe.
Yes.
So when you say the risk of suicide is higher in women than men,
Yes.
Is it death by suicide or is it suicide attempts? Because attempts are much higher in women.
It's people who may have attempted, it's people who've been screened. We have a suicide risk assessment and a protocol that we get vetted by NIMHANS. Mm-hmm. So it's people who are an active risk. It's not people who've died by it yet. It's people who have come to us because they need help at this point in time. They may have attempted, they may not have attempted.
Okay.
But it's the risk that they're at. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. Firstly, an amazing presentation. Thank you so
you.
much. My questions, I have a couple of questions actually. Could you speak a little bit more about the data collection process and also designing the questionnaire or how you process doing that? And also, I didn't see a state-wise breakup and an urban-rural divide or an income, disparity sort of a thing. So if you could tell us a little bit more about that, that would be very helpful. about the audience? And
Sure. So, unfortunately, we don't collect data on urban rural. So, unless somebody has come to us for face-to-face counseling, like if somebody is reaching out to us online through the app or the web or through our telephone, we don't necessarily collect data. We're just trying to get them help as quickly as they need. So, I don't have that, but that would be, a good thing to look at. In terms of data collection, this is from we have a proprietary case management system that has a lot of this data. Every session or every touch point that an employee has on our platform is captured there. So this is data from those sessions that are captured in our system.
just like an overview, like how would you quantify, let's say, anxiety, like in terms of data? Like that's what I was getting at. Like how do you
Okay. So
something like a design process that would help us,
Right.
let's say, measure like over a period of time.
Right.
You're anxious, but then
Yes. So there's two ways in which we look at it. I think the reduction in depression anxiety is measured in a tool. It's called it's a G87. It's a very standardized tool that the WHO uses. And it's just 7 questions, and it's an elective tool that a person takes. So we administer that in the beginning before in a session, and then post, after 3 or more sessions. But what happens is there's a drop-off, certainly, in the number of people who either complete 3 sessions, and then also in the number of people who do that post-screening. But it's a standardized tool that measures anxiety. Yeah. We may also capture, how somebody is feeling if they say, I'm feeling anxious, in a different way. But the data that I'm talking about here is standardized tool-based data. Also, I just wanted to give you, yes, you were asking also about, urban-rural divide, right? So we have sectoral sort of divide. So I think our largest our largest industries are sort of IT, ITES, BFSI, consulting, and manufacturing. So there are certainly pockets of manufacturing setups in tier 2, tier 3 cities that are captured here. And a large blue-collar workforce as well that we work with that's sort of represented in this data.
we have state-wise as well, like state or state-wise by any chance?
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't. I have language-wise, which could be a substitute for
I
state-wise,
think
right?
that would also help you infer a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Mahua,
Yeah.
do you think there's a case, given the massive success of intervention of counselling in saving lives,
Yeah.
that it should be mandatory for organisations to provide counselling?
Yes, because, yes, I do feel like there is a case and there is a public policy argument to be made there. I think because counseling is still prohibitively expensive in India. I mean, maybe we all can afford 1,500, 2,000 rupees a session, but for how long? That's difficult. And then there's no regulation in India in terms of quality either, right? In terms of who gets to be a counselor, how much training they've gone through, etc. So it's important that there is we try to do that with the organizations we work with because we invest heavily in quality and training. And then, to the blue-collar workforce I was just talking about, they cannot afford counseling at all. Nobody, it's really very expensive. We have a dearth of counselors in India. So the only way that a lot of people do get access to this is through their organizations, and organizations that do it. One data point I didn't show here was that dependents also show very high risk. So organizations who support dependents are doing a great job because they're supporting the family member. And if your family member is undergoing something, there's no way in hell that you won't be impacted by that, and your ability to show up at work and be present won't be impacted by that. So yeah, I think organizations have a big role to play.
I have another question as well. We're seeing a lot, again, travelling around, doing the summits around the world, where organizations are, and I think that obviously they mean well. Most organizations are doing it for the right reasons, but I think some are training people to be mental health first aiders.
Yes.
But then there's no strategy behind it. So they end up with, 50, 100 qualified first aiders, but then what? Do you see this?
We do, and we try to mitigate that. I think it's important to have sort of pure channel to signpost, here's where you go for help, because we are, at least I, as a well-being partner or provider, I'm outside of the organization. So it's really important to have those advocates at various levels that are embedded. But I think it's important also to keep them engaged and measure, how many such help-seeking behavior were they able to enable? Is it really working? And what may need to change? Maybe you need a location-based strategy or a hierarchy-based strategy, or whatever else it might be. But I think, it's a good input, but yes, it may be difficult to see outcomes just yet. It's too new. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I give you the mic?
Mentioned about workplace, counseling need has
Yes.
been much lesser than the personal
Yes.
relationship. Is this anything got to do with the fear of data being shared or the confidence? I mean, although, always organization do put that, the data privacy is fully maintained.
Yes.
But to what extent, would you see an influence there where people are not seeking up to take these services?
I would say I can't totally write that off. That will probably always be present. But a counterpoint to that is this year we did over 5,000 on-site sessions, which means half a day of a counselor being on a location, right? That is double or almost triple of what we did last year. And people are coming to the sessions, which means maybe in some cases they're not feeling that stigma because they're willing to take that counseling on premises. Some of it may be because there's something happening in the company or there was a return to work mandate or whatever, and just to mitigate that, there's a counselor there. But I think, that stigma is less and less. And I think, what we try to do is reiterate in every touch point that this is absolutely confidential. Organizations also have gotten a lot more sensitive and better about this than maybe 5-10 years ago. There's a DPDPA Act. There's a lot of things to safeguard your privacy. So, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.